African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Our police in Kenya have charged a recruitment agent accused of tricking young men with promises of jobs in Russia, only for some to end up fighting in Ukraine. Our Festus Arasa Omwamba, head of Global Faces Human Resources, allegedly recruited 22 Kenyans through deception. They were rescued near Nairobi before traveling, but 3 others had already gone and later returned home injured. He has pleaded not guilty. A recent intelligence report estimates that around 1,000 Kenyans have been recruited to fight for Russia's war in Ukraine, with lawmakers warning of trafficking networks and possible collusion by rogue officials. And for more on this, we are joined on the line by a correspondent in Kenya, Alex Kiarrie. Alex, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you very much, Lulu, and welcome back. At least today I'm on video after a very long time.
It's good to have you, Alex, with us. Now, what exact charges has the suspect been formally, or is he formally facing? And are prosecutors treating this as human trafficking, labor fraud, or another offense?
Festus Omwamba was arrested on last Wednesday in a border town called Moyale, near the Ethiopian border, and he is actually being charged with the human trafficking offense. But one very interesting aspect of this charge is that the court in which he has been arraigned usually handles terrorism charges. So this tells you that there could be more charges that will be preferred against him. And yesterday's appearance was meant to take a plea, which he sort of like pushed back because he wanted to be allowed to pursue the case after posting a bail. But the prosecution rejected this, saying that he himself had already indicated that the Russian mercenaries, as he quoted them, had been targeting him and were tracking him down after his arrest, so he could have been more safe in custody than being outside there. But for now, he was supposed to take a plea on human trafficking charges, and the fact that some of the 25 returnees who were allegedly recruited by this gentleman came back with very horrible injuries. I recall last year we interviewed one of the victims who had come back from Donbas, from the front lines in Russia and in Ukraine, and he nursed a ruptured arm which was still under very heavy cast, and he claimed to have been a victim of a drone attack after being deployed to the front lines as a bait, or as they call them, the cannon fodder, to bait the Ukrainian drones. But he was later on rescued by Ukrainian forces and later connected to the Kenyan embassy in Ukraine, which facilitated his return to Kenya. But so far, it is being claimed that over 1,000 Kenyans are already in the country, and that's in the Caucasus, fighting for a war that they know nothing about, and that his company, this Global Face Human Resource Agency, could have been one of the biggest facilitators, although clearly it's not alone.
And when you say clearly he's not alone, could there be additional suspects arrested in the coming days? And, do you know how the men were initially approached and what job opportunities were promised in Russia?
When his office was raided in the outskirts of Nairobi late last year, at least 2 more suspects were arrested, and they were said to be his workers. However, most of the victims who have returned from the country, from Ukraine, claim that they had been promised other jobs beyond what they ended up facing as a reality on the ground. Most of them had been recruited to go as work as logistics companies, in the logistics companies, and also as drivers, but ended up being forced into the front lines after their passports were taken away, and then they were forced to sign contracts that were written in Russian, which they clearly did not understand. While some of them claimed that they had been promised to be paid around $1,900, but this money never reached them nor their families. So there are so many other agencies that are involved in this thing, just that this is the first one to be clearly identified, and this was through a report that was presented in Parliament by the majority leader in the Parliament. That's Kimani Ichung'wah, who said that Global Face Human Resources is one of the several companies that have been recruiting Kenyans to go fight in Russia without the clear knowledge and channels that are supposed to be established by the state, which we, as the media and from the investigation that we have carried out, the government could be complicit because of its overseas recruitment programs, which works with private agencies in terms of recruitment and placement.
Now, Alex, what safeguards are in place to prevent further recruitment?
The government has not given us any of these plans because, as I indicated, the recruitment plans that under the program of foreign work placement in foreign lands for the jobs for Kenyans, the government works with private agencies which recruit and then forward the names to the state, but the state has also failed to give guidelines on how these agencies are supposed to operate, and this is the reason why we have so many Kenyans who ended up in foreign lands being forced into things that they never applied for and they never dreamt of without the government involvement, and only this come out after there is an outcry. And this, if you recall, last week we were talking about the situation in Cambodia and also in Myanmar, but previously the cases have been more prevalent and more rampant in Gulf countries, including Saudi Arabia, where most Kenyans end up signing contracts that they do not understand in Arabic and end up being abused by the host families and employers until the government comes in and tries to bring them back home. But for now, there is no clear plan on how the government is going to rein in on these people who have been running these agencies without the consent and without the clear understanding on how these countries are supposed to engage and how the Kenyans are supposed to be working and when and where and what they're supposed to be doing in those foreign countries.
Now, looking at the returnees, have they shared their accounts what injuries did they have and so on? What are they saying? Have you managed to speak to any of them?
We did speak to one last year, as I indicated earlier, and he had a ruptured arm. His story was quite horrifying. He says that once they were deployed to the front lines, a Ukrainian drone attacked them, and most of his colleagues were killed, and he was forced to hide under the bodies of his colleagues and managed to walk away for almost 5 days without food or no water, only to be captured by the Ukrainian forces and then taken to a hospital where he confessed and was linked to the Kenyan embassy in Ukraine. Another victim came back without a leg, and he's also undergoing treatment at the hospital. But there is another victim whom we have been trying to trace. He is not very much willing to speak to the press, but his are more psychological and more of a social, psychosocial issues that is nursing from what he witnessed in the front lines in Donbass.
And, is there any assistance from government for these individuals who have returned back to Kenya? And are there any chances of legal consequences that they could be facing, for instance, participating in a foreign conflict?
Most of these victims are being treated as victims of human trafficking because they never signed up to be fighters in the foreign lands. Under the Kenyan Constitution, Cap 63 Penal Code, it is illegal and actually a criminal offense to fight for a foreign nation without the consent of the president. However, if they are going to be charged under such, then the law will have to look at the intention. The intention was not to fight; theirs was to go and work in the foreign countries only to be forced. So theirs was not like a criminal offense, it was more like a human trafficking, and in this case, they are being treated as victims, not as as criminals. However, the people who are behind the recruitment are the ones who are being viewed as suspects and therefore could face more charges beyond this human trafficking thing. And in this regard, probably there is a possibility of them being faced with the other terrorist-related charges or other criminal issues to do with the mercenary recruitment, which is not part of the agency's registration as per the applications for consent to operate in the country. And this agency, as indicated, was registered not just in Kenya but also in Russia. And it's also emerging that there is a former Russian embassy employee in Kenya who could have been involved, but he's currently at large. But for now, the suspects are just being treated as victims who need assistance, and that's what the in hospitals are receiving treatment for various issues that they came back with.
Alex, we'll leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you very much.
That's our correspondent in Kenya, Alex Kiarrie, joining us